Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as a Zazel. This is definitely one of the more experimental dailies that I've done, and just in the sense that I've tried something that I usually don't try, and in this case I've entered the Void. I think it's very important for me to kind of mix up my matches, just to kind of try out different things which maybe have turned out pretty badly in the past, but just to give them another chance to see if they maybe perform better in the future. As of Afterbirth Plus came out, I don't think I've ever went to the Void. I think this was my very first time in the Void. I did see videos, obviously, and I do know how it looks like. It's just that I personally have never done it, and I think it was quite a revealing experience that in some cases I think it's actually worth it to go to that particular floor. I think the biggest contributor of points in that case, of course, is obviously exploration bonus. And usually, if you do go to the Void, I think the only chance of it being worth it is if the daily goes to the Shoal or Cathedral. And in this case, because the daily does go only to Shoal, that means we do have a chance of getting more points in the Void than in that particular floor. And I think that's just because obviously you have more rooms to explore, you can obviously get some items which maybe give you consumables, and maybe you can go from there. But I still think that if you think about it, that it's never good to go to the Void. I think the floor in whole just doesn't have a lot of sense. It doesn't give you that many points as opposed to going to the Shoal or Cathedral, so missing out on a potential sacrifice room which you can't find in the Void is probably not worth all the points that you lose. So let's say, for example, that you get maybe an extra 2,000, or let's say 3,000, let's be generous. Let's say that you get an extra 3,000 points by going to the Void as opposed to the Cathedral, but if there's even a 10% chance of finding a sacrifice room and getting an additional 7,000 points as opposed to 3,000, I think it's worth it to just go to that particular floor. Because of how the dailies are structured, it's much more important to actually go for the high chance, maybe high chance, low risk, high reward in that sense, or maybe high risk, high reward, even if you look at it. In any case, I think it's much more important to go for the higher scoring strategy, just because it will give you more points in general, and because these particular dailies are very top heavy, in the sense that you really do need a lot of good scores if you want to rank well, so just doing mediocre really won't get you far, and in fact, if you do badly, it will remain on your score forever, at least with how it is now, so that's probably not the best way to go about it. So that's why I think it's even more important to go to the Shoal or to the Cathedral to maybe have an off chance of finding that sacrifice room, which can then give you just a lot more points than just going to the Void would naturally. But in this case, I did do a blunder, a little bit of a mistake that I think led me to the right decision, that I needed to go to the Void. And sure, you know, I could have gone to the Shoal, and as I've heard it, there was a sacrifice room there, which means it would have been worth it, but I didn't have any hearts, I didn't have any way of generating hearts, so in this particular case, just because of my bad play, essentially, it was much better for me to go to the Void to get more points there. Another contributing factor in that fact was that I had Bomb Bag, and Bomb Bag works, I think, every 3 or 4 rooms that you beat, you get a bomb consumable drop, and just because the Void has obviously much more floors, that means that overall I would get more bombs there, and I would just get a bunch more points. Another contributing factor to that was that the Void floor, I feel, is easier on average, just because there's a lot of rooms, or I would say every single room in the game is mixed in there. Sure, you're gonna get some hard rooms, but the Shoal, I think, on average is a much harder floor than the Void is, and because I didn't have a lot of health in that situation, I thought that would be a good idea to increase my score even further without actually putting me in any danger. So in this case, I think it was only worth it because I played badly, because I lost a lot of health previously, and just overall because things didn't really go well for me because I did miss Harsh in that situation. So that was maybe quite unfortunate, but nevertheless, I think this was one of those rare cases where going to the Void was actually a good idea. And I'm sure there are more, I'm sure there is a sentence to be made. Of course, if you know the dailies in advance, then maybe you know if there's gonna be a sacrifice room which you can use, or maybe if there's not gonna be. So if you know that there's not gonna be a self-sacrifice room, then you can go to the Void, because I think in that case it's gonna pay off more. But if you don't know, if you're playing it blind like I am, then I always think it's a good idea to go to the Shoal or the Cathedral, and that's just my final standing on it. I never did the math. I'm thinking about doing like a series where maybe I debunk, or not debunk, but I just kind of analyze some of these things, because I do a lot of theory crafting in my head in these videos, and I don't see a reason why I couldn't do it by doing actual math and just showcasing it in maybe a shorter videos. So if that's something that you would like to see, or maybe hear, I would love to do it. Maybe I'll do like a sample episode to see how it does, and then I'll go from there and decide on whether it's a good idea or not. In this case, I definitely think analyzing going to the Void floor or not, whether it's a good idea. I think some people have done it, and there are some data out there, so maybe just present it in a nice fashion with maybe some graphs and charts and maybe an introduction to some statistics, and that would maybe work out or not. But nevertheless, that's nor here nor there. Let's go back to the daily. And in this case, Just because we're Azazel, we do tend to struggle with our range quite a lot. Thankfully, Multidimensional Baby does synergize pretty well with him, because even if you land your shot, even if it's a brimstone shot, that gets doubled, and it does add some extra range on top of it. Obviously, the big downside is that you really don't have control over Multidimensional Baby. You kind of have to stand still for a few seconds for it to catch up to you, and then you can only use it and kind of extend your range. So it's not very useful in a lot of situations. It does help in some cases where you just want a little bit of a higher damage output to just kind of melt enemies, but overall I would still say that Multidimensional Baby isn't that good on Azazel just because of how limited he feels, because you really do need to rely on your movement and dodging to get away from hairy situations, and most often all you do need to position yourself well just so you're not in danger. And obviously, because of how enemies work and just because of how low range works in this game, you kind of really can't stand still very close to the enemies, just because eventually they're gonna fire a random shot at you and it's gonna hit you, and that's gonna suck for you. So Multidimensional Baby overall, I would say it's not the best choice for Azazel, but definitely it helps. That it's definitely not a negative addition, that's what I'm trying to say. Some of the other things, maybe the highlights of this run, was definitely the Ivy Bag, and whenever Ivy Bag shows up I'm just super excited, especially because in this one it showed up after 3 or 4 uses on the Blood Bank, which is always great. And in this case, because sadly a mistake I made a lot of mistakes in this run, and one is just coming right up. I definitely went to the boss trap room, I didn't consider doing it, and I was just so flustered because of the Curse of the Maze. I tried to went out, I tried to went back in, and when I got teleported to this particular room, I thought it's just a regular chest, forgetting that it's a mimic. Obviously I saw it's a mimic, but just because I was kind of dazed and confused in that sense, I walked into it, and that was a blunder on my part, definitely a very big blunder, and it cost me a lot of health. And for that reason, because I was kind of flustered, I also missed boss rush, I mean Hush in this case. So it all in all was just a mess of a run. And before you know what kind of got me going on this frustrating train that I just didn't focus right, was definitely that I had 2 health containers, and I think I traded one away. And that was definitely a mistake, because then essentially I can't use my Polaroid invincibility, and obviously if you have 2 hearts, that means you can use it once, because every damage you take on Womb 1 or beyond is gonna cost you 1 full red heart. And obviously when you have the Ivy Bag, you can then just use that to deal increased damage. I mean, you deal damage to yourself, get some coins in it, but also if it leaves you at half a heart of an interval, that means you also get Polaroid invincibility. But if you only have 1 red heart, that means you can never trigger that, and it kind of takes the point away. You know, I'll lose a lot of points by not actually being able to use it, but I also lose a lot of defense by not protecting myself, and essentially because of that I can't use it defensively, and because of that I do get hit a few too many times here, and my damage penalty is very high because of that. And all in all, it was just, like I said, from this point on it was kind of a mess of a run. And like I said before, just because when I did get to Mom, I did miss Hush, and what you would do normally is beat Hush and then you would have a guaranteed teleport to the Void floor, but in this case I didn't. But what did end up happening is the Void portal opened on Mom's heart, I mean, and I decided to take it just because of the reasons I stated previously. I had a bomb bag, and because there's a lot of floors here, that means also there's a lot of bombs, which in turn means a lot more points than if I did go to Shoal. And in this case, because I had very low HP, I don't think I could have used the Sacrifice Room anyway, even if it did spawn, and like I said, I think it did spawn. So that was no good for me. So all in all, I think this was the right decision in this case. And if you don't know, maybe there's a little trick to determining whether there is a delirium in one particular room or not. And how you determined it, or at least how I determine it, maybe the easiest way of imagining it, is explore all the floors around the particular boss area, and then just imagine a 2x2 room being stuck on top of it. And if it does fit, that means that it can be there, and if it doesn't fit, that means it can't be there. So in the case of maybe if you look at a particular boss floor, like in this case, I'm in the second secret room, and there's a boss room right next to the left of it, and in this case it cannot be delirium, because in any case it's gonna be it can't be a 2x2 big room, because that means it would be on the edge of the other secret room, and obviously that can't happen. So that means that it has to be a 1x1 room, which in turn means that it's a regular boss room. I hope that made sense. That's definitely one of the things that I did consider talking about my strategy videos, which I mentioned previously. And maybe another trick that you kind of can take advantage of, which is a bit cheap in some cases, but in this case I think it's very warranted, because obviously everyone does it, and there's really nothing I would say unhonorable about it. It's just an oversight of the game developers. And essentially, when you beat the final boss and you know that the final boss will be Delirium, or maybe as soon as you enter the Delirium fight, you can just exit the game immediately and you're gonna get all of your points. And you might be wondering, why not beat Delirium and get the trophy? And that's mainly because that trophy doesn't give you any extra points. So that's kind of a bummer, you know, there's really no reason why you would do Delirium, just because it's a very hard boss fight, has a lot of HP, and in this case I wasn't really overpowered to just be able to one-shot it instantly. Maybe I could have used my Polaroid invincibility to kind of finagle around that, but overall it would only give me like 100 or maybe 200 points in total, so I decided it was not worth it. It's just better to exit at that particular point, and we ended with a 35,000 point, not lead, but just overall we had 35,000 points. So that was quite a mech daily. Now, definitely, like I said before, very experimental. Our damage penalty was obviously quite high, mainly because I did rush a bit when I tried to get to Harsh, and I did take a lot of stupid damage, and I did miss Harsh, and obviously that's another 5,000 points on top of that. Other than that, this could have been a very easy 40,000, maybe even 42,000 if I did play much better, and that would put me in a much more comfortable spot. But as it is now, you know, I think every daily is a journey of its own, and this is definitely one of those that I think I played a bit badly. It was maybe a combination of me trying to rush, maybe just a combination of me not being really used to the characters much, because I don't really tend to play Zazel that much, and overall it was just it was what it was. You know, I really can't. I'm not gonna bring up excuses. It was mostly bad play, and yeah, I've been going on for too long here, and I hope you enjoyed this one, anyways, guys, and I hope to see you next time.